Yes, good afternoon, folks. Minsal Kibalan wanted to continue the conversation about, MongoDB, but also bringing in something else as well. Um, Before I say this, I mean, I think I've mentioned, repeatedly, the popularity of MongoDB is unmatched and well deserved. But there is another, database that has some similarities that should also be a part of the conversation, and I believe Couchbase is that database. So we'll talk about a little bit of each today. The focus will actually be on Couchbase. I mean, I know we've been talking about MongoDB a lot. You'll notice one thing I like to do is to compare and contrast. Like when we were talking about MongoDB and the CRUD, create, read, update, delete, we were, trying to draw some parallels between that and what you do on, say, a MySQL database. Try to, so you can kind of, some people, it's helpful, it helps them understand the concepts better. So we'll try to do something similar with Couchbase and MongoDB in this conversation. So one thing that comes up when talking about databases in general is how to deploy it and then host it. So and I guess connect to it, right? So we'll talk about that, in reference to both of these databases, MongoDB and Couchbase. And since a lot of people are using Kubernetes these days, we'll talk about it in the Kubernetes context. So typically with Kubernetes, you're going to use a YAML file, and YAML is, for people that don't know what YAML is. How do you describe? I think it'd be better if you just go and Google it because I'm not going to give it justice. The YAML. All I'm going to talk about is colons and tabs. So I know I'm not going to give it justice, so I won't. I'll let you Google it, and I'm sure there's some folks that can explain what, because I've used YAML so much, it's hard for me to explain to somebody who may not have never seen it before. So I won't attempt to. But when you're deploying on Kubernetes, a lot of times you'll use the YAML files. You'll use the kubectl command line tool, and you may use an apply command, and then -F, and then put the file that you want to deploy to Kubernetes. Now, in Kubernetes, there's a feature called StatefulSets, which you do typically use when you're deploying database clusters. And I have something on the board. I don't know if it's legible or not, but one way, some of the benefits that you get from StatefulSets is, I call it Spock. There's no K at the end, but that you sometimes you have things that help you remember things. So for this, we have, if you can see it, you have a stable identity. We're talking about the pods here, because in Kubernetes, things are deployed to pods, et cetera. That's kind of a core unit when we're talking about Kubernetes deployments. But having pods with stable identities. Then we have persistent storage, which is very important, because when you restart the database, which obviously can't happen, you want there to be the same data there that you had before. You don't want to be starting from scratch with storage every single time you deploy the database. Ordered operations, and I guess that's more for my DevOps folks, and consistent networking. Because you do want to consistently connect, to your database no matter what changes or updates are made are made to it. So that's essentially what you want when you're deploying a database on Kubernetes, because obviously you can take the Docker image and deploy it, but the database won't be as much use if you don't have those things in place: stable identity, persistent storage, ordered operations, consistent networking. Without those things, it won't be as useful as a database, being deployed to Kubernetes. So, we'll take a typical MongoDB deployment, YAML to Kubernetes with stateful sets, YAML configuration file. In the YAML configuration file, you have the stateful sets deployment that you've selected. I won't go too far into detail. We may could do this in another video where I'm actually sharing my screen and showing you, and we'll use Google Kubernetes engine. And I'll show my screen and showing you the kubectl commands, the YAML file and all that, but we'll do that in another video. But you're configuring a YAML file for a stateful sets deployment. The Docker image will be Mongo. You can put the version in there, whatever version you want to put in there. And like I said, kubectl apply. You name the file something, Mongo cluster YAML. However you want to name the file. kubectl apply -f, name of the file. Send it to the Google Kubernetes engine. All right, so there you go. We talked about the Mongo shell. You can use the Mongo shell to connect to the database cluster. Okay, so there you have it. Because you have the consistent networking and etc. And if you had an application, you could actually use. I'm getting too far into Kubernetes, but you can actually use a simplified URL that will let you connect to the DB again, no matter what updates or changes you made to it. But that's a whole nother video. Now, for Couchbase, you have all those things, but what you also have, what I have above the Spock, is a Couchbase Autonomous Operator. So that simplifies, in my opinion, the deployment of Couchbase to Kubernetes. So it does all the stateful sets. Let me say it correctly. It does all the stateful sets stuff for you. Because in the YAML, you have a kind property, and that kind property, you'll put Couchbase cluster there. And I probably should mention, before you deploy either one of these databases, you can create a namespace for it. That's a good practice to use. Create a namespace for the deployments that you have, so you can. It's like creating a folder in OneDrive, I guess. A rough analogy, but that's something that Couchbase has, that autonomous operator that just definitely simplifies the deployment of Couchbase. And obviously you can configure it. You can say how many databases you want in a cluster and things of that nature. But it definitely simplifies the deployment. As far as the connection, and this is the last thing we'll talk about, is Couchbase does have a CBC tool that you can use. It also has a Couchbase CLI that you can use to connect. And again, because you have the consistent networking, you can use that. You can get a consistent URL to connect via command line and username, etc., and do the operations that you that you want to perform. But we'll stop there. I don't want to go too deep into this, but it's a good conversation. We'll definitely continue it. And like I said, I'll try to show you some things, share my screen and show you some things so you can really see how this works. Talk to y'all later. Peace.